Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yes.
Awesome. Oh, and you probably can hear my cat meowing in the background and my clock chiming too. Well, at least I'm prompt. Hey, Amy. Okay. It is 5 o'clock on September 22nd, and I'm calling the Policy and Personnel meeting to order. Michelle, may I have roll call, please?
Levy?
Here.
Wong?
Here.
Jacobs?
Here.
I have everybody
May I
present
help?
with Wong in the boardroom.
Oh. Thank you. May I have approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the agenda. Any other discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Next up is approval of the minutes of September 8th. May I have approval of the September 8th minutes?
So moved. With one adjustment, the minutes currently list that we adjourned at 8:57 p.m. I'm not sure of the exact time, but I know it wasn't 8:57.
Thanks for that catch, Amy.
I'll second that with the adjustment there, as noted.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the agenda with the caveat that it did not end at that time, and we have a second.
To approve the minutes.
Yes, to approve the minutes, I'm sorry. Sorry, thanks, Amy. Any questions or discussions? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving the September 8th minutes with that the time adjustment, please say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, the motion of the minutes passes. And we are at policies for first reading. The last time we met, we went over these and asked administration to go back and to do some tweaking. So we will begin with policy 733, Rule 2, vending and appliance use policy. Dr. Kieser, would you like to jump in?
Thank you, Board Member Jacobs. In this one, we made some adjustments. We highlighted, or as I guess the appropriate term is, redlined the policy. So there was, I think, only one adjustment for readability, and that was in number 2, striking the word all and putting a in front of mini refrigerators and coolers. So there were no other additions or changes that I had on my notes or Rob had from his perspective.
On just number 2 now, you're referring to, Dr. Kieser?
Yes, so everything that's in red, if you're looking at it on the screen, are things that we talked about. Things that were in blue are adjustments from that meeting, and so that the only one was for readability. We struck the word all, and we just put a instead in front of the word mini refrigerator / coolers in number 2 there.
Okay, thank you. I see Board Member Levy, you have a question.
Yes, just for clarification, I know that when we met, we discussed mini fridges, microwaves, and coffee makers, and I see that you addressed that there's some edits in number 5, so I'll kind of hold that until then. But the way this reads, it seems as though the only thing that will be assessed are the mini fridges. So my point, if we're allowing mini fridges, microwaves, and coffee makers, if I have a microwave and a coffee maker, will I be assessed the fee?
Based on the discussion that we had, the assessment was only for the mini fridge / cooler. So as the current policy stands right now, no, it would only be for that. So that is something we could add to the policy and say if it's any or all of these in combination, or as, by item, however we would want the policy to read.
No, I'm not pushing for additional fees. I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding it clearly and it was omitted intentionally. So mini fridges will be the only things that are assessed for fees, but microwaves and coffee makers are also allowed. Is that correct?
Correct, based on the conversation that we had, yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. And actually, I just had a typo. If you quickly go up above number 2 to non-refrigerated vending, we just need a space between vending and the $sign. Sorry, very minor.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay. Are we ready to move on, team, to number 3? Okay.
In terms of, sorry, you mean number 3 in the policy?
Yes, please.
Oh, yes. So the rest of the policy in terms of 3, 4, we omitted 5, and then 6 became 5. There were no other adjustments or changes other than what is indicated in there.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Board Member Levy, where did you see I'm having a hard time finding you said coffee makers were listed in here?
They were initially listed in the policy, but number 5 has been struck.
So we're just not, okay, going to take, all right, got it.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. If we want to be explicit and let people know that you can have mini fridges, microwaves, and coffee makers, then we may want to spell that out. Or we could leave it as mini fridges are the only thing that will be assessed a fee, and the understanding is you can also have microwaves and coffee makers. I would lean towards if that is what is allowed, put it in there and make it clear.
I tend to agree with that. Board Member Wong, what are your feelings?
I would agree with that. I think it just makes it clearer for everybody so there's no ambiguity,
Okay. Any suggestions on how to write that in?
So
not necessarily the verbiage. Oh,
yep.
Sorry, but I would add it to number 6 that has become number 5 when we're addressing space heaters.
Another place to put it would be in the opening paragraph to the numbered section where we say the installation of vending, refrigeration, and other appliances are permitted subject to the approval of the building administrator. We could strike out other appliances and then just list microwaves and coffee makers.
I'm good with that. Board Member Levy?
I think that's a better spot, yes.
Board Member Wong?
I would agree.
Okay. Let's do that then. Michelle, did you get all that?
Yes, I did.
Could you mind reading it back?
So it would say in the paragraph above the numbers, the installation of vending, refrigeration, microwaves, and coffee makers are permitted subject to, I just have to move my little box where I was making the notation. Subject to the approval of the building's administrator.
Okay. Thank you. Did anyone have anything else to say about this first reading?
Sorry, this is Joanne.
Right.
One question. When you're specifying in that opening statement of the vending, refrigeration, microwaves, and coffee makers, I'm not trying to be a stickler here. Do we need to include space heaters because that is identified in number 5 and it is referenced in the very opening statement of being a draw on energy. So if we're going to list out the approved appliances, do we want to include space heaters in there?
Well, I would be okay with that, and actually, and I don't know if I should bring it up at this time. When I was rereading this again today, and I was kind of thinking about it from the last time regarding the space heaters, is it really fair to ask a staff member to have to pay for a heating unit when that, to me, that should be provided by the district? I don't, because the district can't maintain a certain heat in the working condition. I don't think that we should put that fee upon a staff member. To me, that should be, every person should have a healthy, safe working environment. And if we are not regulating the heat properly, I'm not sure why we have to have a staff member pay for it. Board Member Levy?
So the only fees that would be assessed are for the mini fridges. And I wouldn't include the space heaters up top because those are the things that are universally allowed. The mini fridge, the microwave, the coffee maker. Space heaters are allowed, but I'm thinking that would be fewer and far between because it's only if the temperature is below 68 degrees and you have notified maintenance that is the case, and they are not able to immediately rectify that. So once you go through those 2 layers, then you could bring in a space heater. So I wouldn't include it up top as being very general because there's a set prescription for when a space heater is allowable, but there's no fee for it.
But Board Member Levy, I believe, let's see, it says the personal units will be, I wasn't reading it properly. You are correct. I stand corrected. Board Member Wong, feelings? Thoughts?
I would agree. I think you need to keep it separate just because it is as you had stated, I mean, heat is a basic, one of the basics that should be expected. So this is going to be those rare exceptions that come up from time to time, and hopefully we can address them by turning the thermostat up. If that's not able to be done for whatever reason, then a space heater can be brought in. But then again, there's no charges that I can see in there as well.
If you read
there is a charge.
In number 5, it says that if the required temperatures are met, the personal units will be allowed and charged in the same manner that a refrigerator unit is charged. So we would need to either remove that or change that wording.
Can anyone, I'm just trying to think of a time when a person would want it warmer than the temperature approved by the district.
That happens quite often, in that you have people that run cooler, and we have offices that are, some people put them up to 72, 75.
Okay.
We've had people that need a warmer environment. Standard of 68 is, so they will bring heaters in.
Okay. So, thank you, Joanne. So then we're just going to leave number 5 as is then, separate. Oh, yes, Board Member Levy, please.
So what I would do is say that it will be charged in the same manner that a refrigerating unit is charged, unless an exemption is approved by your building administrator. And what I would think of as an exemption, like if you have a medical condition that requires that you do better in a warmer environment, if it's your preference, then I think you can pay for it if you want it warmer than 68 degrees. If you have some other underlying issue where you benefit from being in a warmer climate, then I think that would fall under a building exception. And if we include that language, then that gives the building administrator the leeway to make a good judgment.
Joanne?
Yep, I would just like to offer a clarification that in the 5+ years I have been here, I have never seen a charge for a space heater to any staff member. So we do not we do charge for those refrigerators in the past, but we have not been charging any staff member for a space heater. And I do have concerns about having staff tell their building administrator if they have a health condition, because those are typically would be run through an ADA process or through HIPAA through the HR office in allowing those types of medical accommodations. And giving that authority to a building administrator could potentially put us at some risk for having staff turn over confidential personnel medical history to people who are not in the position that should have that data. That's just my clarification.
Thank you. Board Member Wong.
Ms. Armstrong, can you tell us, do you have any idea of approximately how many space heaters have been used or are being used within the district?
I would feel I'm being conservative to say that there is probably a space heater in 3/4 of our classrooms and our offices.
All right, so are we all right, board members, with leaving the wording in 5 as is then? Board Member Wong? Board Member Levy?
That's a huge percentage. I don't know about 3/4, 75% of our classes. I mean, is it a matter of, is it that cold in the rooms if it's 68, or I don't know. I'm going to think on that one.
Yeah, I will say it is a huge number. These are things that we get comments on from the fire inspector as well. I can tell you they're not used at all times. They are present in these classrooms and these offices. I can speak for myself. I have one in my office. I know my secretary has one as well. We're in a brand new building. But the issue that we run across is that the buildings maybe, the set temperature is 68 degrees, and in the transition time from air to heat, your temperature can fluctuate quite drastically, and the ability to maintain the building at 68 in any capacity is there, but 68 degrees is not necessarily what people are accustomed to. So especially in the fall and in the spring when seasons are changing and the dampness in the air, we will see that these rise. I'm not implying that they're being used every day or that they're all there, but I truly will tell you that if you walk through any of our buildings, you will see staff have heaters in their office for those instances.
If we have that many, why aren't we raising the heat then? And that's probably now I'm getting in an area where a board member doesn't belong, but I just am asking the question if we have that many space heaters.
I think our required temperature in this policy says 68. In the majority of our buildings, we're maintaining a 70 degree temperature. I can do a further report on that for the board or get that information for Dr. Keyser to share with everyone. Some of our buildings are heat and they're old boiler systems, and one side of the building may be hotter or colder than the other. As we see the high school, the third floor temperatures change. I can't give you a definite answer. I can definitely get more information on it. I was just trying to provide some context.
Thank you, Joanne. And I'm not sure, after I brought it up, that this is even relevant for this policy at this time, and perhaps that would be better with another, perhaps oversight in finance. I'm not sure. Board Member Levy?
Okay, so two things. I appreciate Ms. Armstrong's perspective that fees have not been collected. I'm a little uncomfortable with having practice influence how we write policy. I think it's our job to set policy and then administrator's job to enforce policy. I am fine with it the way it is if we include the same manner the refrigerator unit is charged unless the staff member receives an exemption from HR. And then that way, thank you again, Ms. Armstrong, a staff member won't have to disclose anything that they're not comfortable with their building administrator. But if there was an issue, my assumption is that HR would be aware of that, and we wouldn't be violating any HIPAA rights.
Yes, that is how we handle the process with mini refrigerators. For instance, with a diabetic who has to have supplies there, we approve those recommendations. So we would handle this in the same manner.
Okay, so if I'm correct in hearing everyone, then we're all right with leaving the wording as is with this policy, board members?
I would do a medical exemption, but instead of being approved by the building administrator, it was approved by HR.
All right, and Board Member Wong?
I'm fine with the wording, but I guess I'm questioning if we're not charging a fee, and these are not on all the time, and I respect the fact that if they're on because of building temperatures, if it's on third floor or first floor, that's going to fluctuate quite a bit from building to building. Are we going to include that in there as a charge when we're not even collecting those? I guess is the question. I mean, if we're going to have we have it in there, they should be charged the fee. But if we're not going to collect it, then are we? And the rooms need to be at a comfortable temperature. I mean, I'm all for that. I mean, we need to make it comfortable for people to be able to do their job in an appropriate manner. And that goes along the line of it should be a basic need or a basic necessity in each room.
Well, with all that being said, could we just strike part of the sentence, I'm down on number 5 then, and say, and then maybe Board Member Levy, then we wouldn't, I don't know that we necessarily even have to put anything about a health concern, and just say if required temperatures are met, the personal units will be allowed, period. And strike and charge in the same manner that a refrigerator is charged. Thoughts on that?
Did you mean allowed or not allowed?
Will be allowed. And then just a period after that. And then it's just done.
I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. Is your statement that if the 68-degree temperature is met, then it will be allowed?
Yes.
That doesn't make sense to me. Like, if it's being met, I thought the point of the verbiage here was that you could only use the space heater if the 68 degrees threshold was not being met, and that it would be charged the same way that refrigerators are charged.
Okay, and I'm reading it on that it says, so if a building remedy is not possible, space heating will be allowed. And then it goes on to say, if the required temperatures are met, and I'm assuming that means 68 degrees. Is that what the intent of the language is? Could someone clarify? Please?
Yes. So,
Yes, I believe it is saying that If it's not met, you will notify building maintenance and remedy the situation. If a building remedy is not possible, space heating will be allowed. If the required temperatures are met, which would be the 68, the personal units would be allowed and charged in the same manner. That's saying we're maintaining those temperatures at the building, so therefore the need would not be there for a personal heater.
Does that clarify for you, Board Member Levy?
So Stephanie, so you just want to strike the fee, and then if this fee is stricken, then we wouldn't have to have the medical exemption, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Board Member Wong, that's good with you?
I'm fine with that. I would hope that building administrators and staff are not abusing this in a way that, that they're going to crank these space heaters up because they're allowed and we have rooms at 75 or 80 degrees. I would hope that nobody's going to do that. And I would respect the fact that they're going to be professional about it and use it as needed. And if they need a room a little warmer because it's cooler that day, so be it. At no charge.
Okay. Well, are there any other questions or concerns about how this policy is written? Are we ready to make a motion, perhaps?
Could we have Michelle read back number 6 that has now become number 5, please?
Michelle, please.
Okay, I'm not quite 100% sure what you just did with that sentence you were working on with the refrigerator charge in it. I had it the way Board Member Levy wanted it with the medical exception in there, but then through this last discussion, were you still striking part of it or striking the whole thing? That's the part I wasn't sure where you landed.
That's okay, Michelle. So my understanding is on number 5, we're going to, in regard to the space heater, we're going to say if the required temperatures are met, the personal units will be allowed, period. And then we'll strike and charge in the same manner that a refrigerator unit is charged.
Okay. All right. So you're leaving the whole beginning part about the space heaters. These items are considerable energy draw, possible safety issue, the heating of the respective areas of each building is designed to conform to policy 733 rule 1 covering required minimum temperatures 68 degrees office. If this is not met, notification to building maintenance staff must be made to remedy the situation. If a building remedy is not possible, space heating will be allowed. If the required temperatures are met, the personal units will be allowed, period. Strike the rest. Units brought in will have the UL label and be in good running order. All units must be unplugged when not in use to prevent energy waste and a possible fire hazard.
Yes, that's what we had agreed on. Now I'm wondering about that very first sentence. These items are considerable energy draw.
May I interject?
Yes.
All right, so here's the thing. My new recommendation is that we include space heaters up top where we talk about mini fridge, microwave, and coffee makers. And for number 6, that has now become number 5, we have space heaters, and only the last 2 sentences. Because it doesn't make sense to go on and on about how it's an energy suck and we're going to maintain temperature, but if we don't, you can still use them at no cost. They're fine. We are not going to charge you. Just leave the last 2 sentences. It has to have a UL label, and it has to be in good working order, and you have to unplug it when you're not using it.
Board Member Wong, do you agree?
Yes.
I do as well. Okay, so Michelle.
Got it. I think I have that one.
Okay, so then number 5 is just going to say units, well, we probably should say space, oh, you've already said that though, Board Member Levy, correct, the space heaters. Okay, great, and then units brought in, all right. And then we'll put space heaters in, up on, and add that to
Where we took out
number-
other appliances and added microwaves and coffee makers? Is that correct, Levy? Board Member Levy?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Does anybody want anything clarified further? Or a discussion? All right. Are we ready for a motion?
I'll move approval to the full board, or to recommend to the full Board of Education the addition and layover of policy 723.41 school, or no, sorry, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Move to recommend to the full Board of Education approval and layover of policy 733, Rule 2, vending and appliance use policy for first reading as amended or as adjusted.
Second.
All right, great. We have a motion and a second for policy 733, Rule 2, vending and appliance use policy to be presented to the full board as amended. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? All right. The motion passes then for that to be taken to the full board. And now we are on policy 723.41, school opening/reopening during a public health crisis.
Board Member Jacobs, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes, you may.
So the approval of the policy, we had talked about if a policy is approved at the committee level, we forward it on to the next month so that it wouldn't come right to the meeting today. It would come to the next full board meeting next month.
Yeah.
Is that
Thank you
still
for
our
reminding me
understanding?
that. Yes, you are correct, Dr. Keiser. Thank you for that reminder.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, so this will be at next month's board meeting. Correct? That's what you were asking?
Correct.
Awesome. Okay, great. All right. Then let's look at letter B, the school opening. And again, we had asked administration to go back and to do a little rewording, rewriting.
Okay, so in the paragraph midway through, so it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the sixth paragraph down from the top, you'll see a sentence that is all highlighted. That sentence and the sentence that comes immediately after that are the exact same sentence. They are just written, the highlighted sentence is written for readability. The sentence that comes after it was the sentence as it was adjusted based on the conversation. So in this example, the reopening or remaining opening must prioritize and I don't know why it's struck out, academic learning and engagement that that the district is required by law while keeping in mind the health and safety of students. The highlighted is written for readability. The reopening or remain open must prioritize the academic learning and engagement of the district as required by law alongside the health and safety of staff and students. Provided both of those for the committee to choose which one they felt best represented the conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Keiser. Any questions or comments? Board Member Levy.
The way I'm reading it, they say the same thing, because the conversation that we got into at the last meeting was, since we're using the word prioritize, we have to set a priority. And your actions are very different if your priority is academic learning versus if your priority is health and safety. And in both of these, it says reopening or remaining open must prioritize the academic learning. And then in the second option, it says reopening or remaining open must prioritize academic learning. So unless I'm missing something, they're both the same thing. And just personally, my preference is to prioritize health and safety while keeping in mind academic learning.
Okay, and I was trying to not adjust what was both Ms. Shope and Mr. Buchama's notes and just putting it in readability. So that's why I wanted to bring it back here for the committee to talk about. And yes, in terms of academic learning and health and safety, that was the discussion that was being had was, do we prioritize? Are they simultaneous? Does one take priority over the other? So, and I know Board Member Levy, you have shared that health and safety should take the priority over the academic learning in, as you had stated. So do we want to adjust that in turn? So I kick that back to the committee in terms of the recommendation that Board Member Levy's has made in terms of putting health and safety ahead of academic learning.
Okay, Dr. Kieser, I see that Board Member Wong has a question.
Yeah, the first sentence of that paragraph, I think, kind of should guide the prioritization because it states, during an ongoing health crisis, and keep the board informed of such plan. That alone should probably set precedent, should prioritize the health and safety over the academic learning and engagement.
So I'm hearing that the issue with the word priority or prioritize. And I'm also hearing that that's what I'm hearing, is that people are thinking that the health and safety is paramount. That's the first thing, which Board Member Wong, I think that's what you were saying, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So, Wordsmith Levy, do you have a suggestion for how to?
Well, here's the thing. I think the words will become clearer once we're clear about what we want to say. So, Board Member Wong, I appreciate your sentiment about that first sentence, and I'm going to offer a little gentle pushback because just because we are in a health crisis does not mean that everyone responds in the same manner. So I don't think that we should assume that just because we are in a health crisis, that the priority is health and safety. And that's why, since we're using the word priority, unless that changes, then I think we need to be clear about what our priority is. And I can't speak for anyone but me, but in a health crisis, my priority is health and safety, keeping in mind academic learning. And the two versions that we have here to pick from say the same thing. So in my opinion, there's just one choice here.
My intent wasn't to have one choice. My intent was to bring back what the discussion as it was last left, because having the committee's conversation is precisely to bring that clarity around the what. I personally, and speaking for myself, I personally feel, Board Member Levy, you and I are believe in the same thing. We're just coming at it from two different directions, and and in terms of the policy committee, it's really the conversation with the board members present that's key here. So I'm just offering up what was recorded from last time so that we could continue the discussion. I'm fine if we want to flip-flop the discussion or the sentence to say that it is health and safety alongside the academic learning and engagement of the district, or vice versa.
I have a suggestion then. Could we state after the first sentence, the superintendent shall develop a plan for keeping schools open or reopening them during an ongoing health crisis and keep the board informed of such a plan. Strike out that next sentence, go down to reopening or remaining open must prioritize the health and safety of the students and staff while keeping in mind the academic and learning engagement that the district is required by law to provide, period.
Okay.
What do the other board members feel?
I'm fine with that. I think Megan has a question.
I was going to say something almost identical to what our chair just said. So thank you, though.
And I apologize, Board Member Miller. I did not see your question. So thank you.
Fine, thank you.
Board Member Wong?
Yeah, I'm fine with that change. That's the direction I was heading in the first place.
Okay. Michelle, do you want to reread it for us, please?
Sure. So the full paragraph would say, the superintendent shall develop a plan for keeping schools open or reopening them during an ongoing health crisis and keep the board informed of such a plan. Reopening or remaining open must prioritize the health and safety of students and staff while keeping in mind the academic learning and engagement that the district is required by law to provide.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Kisa, you're good with that as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Then, is there any other part we need to look at under provision of alternative education? Dr. Kieser, did you want to comment on that?
Yes, there were two other areas in which there was discussions on the sentences, and again, the highlighted sentence and the sentence that precedes it are intended to be exactly the same sentiment, just worded for readability. We had talked about the superintendent shall be responsible for the determination of the mode of instruction and for developing and implementation of a plan for alternative educational services for opening, reopening. The highlighted is intended to say the exact same thing, just worded so that it reads more fluid to read. The superintendent shall be responsible for the mode of instruction and development and implementation of a plan for alternative educational services and for the opening, reopening. So again, I offer it, the highlighted sentence, only for readability, and open it up for the committee to continue discussions.
Thank you. Discussion, anyone? Board Member Levy.
I would ask that we include and report that information to the board, only because, for example, Fresh Start is open, and I kind of accidentally found out that Fresh Start was open face-to-face. I also recently was just told that the Teen Parent Program at Head Start is also face-to-face. And so I think if those things are communicated to the board, that just helps to make sure we're all on the same page as to the decisions that the superintendent has made.
I agree with that as well. Board Member Levy. Board Member Wong or Board Member Miller, comments?
I have nothing to add.
I'm sorry, John, what was that? You're good with that?
I'm good with it, yeah.
Okay.
Which version of the sentence would we want to add that to? Do we want to use the original or do we want to use the highlighted version?
I think the highlighted version gives more detail, but I would just also add and communicate all decisions to the board.
After which sentence, Board Member Levy?
The one in pink, so it would read, the superintendent shall be responsible for the mode of instruction and the development and implementation of a plan for alternative educational services and for the opening/reopening and communicating these decisions to the board. And then pick up with the superintendent shall be responsible for the determination of the mode of instruction.
That would be the line that we
No.
would scratch.
Right, so do the highlighted pink version and then pick back up with the pink when it goes into the curriculum to make it clear that those decisions would still be kept by the board.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle, can you reread that back once again, then? Are you ready?
Yes. My understanding would be that it would be the superintendent shall be responsible for the mode of instruction and the development and implementation of a plan for alternative educational services and for the opening/reopening and communicating all decisions to the board. Any curriculum changes would follow established board policies, or the changes in curriculum would still be approved by the board, which you guys haven't gotten to yet.
Correct.
I'm sorry, Michelle, what was that last bit? The connection's going in and out a bit.
Sure, I stated the last two sentences, which you guys haven't gotten to yet, because where it says the superintendent shall be responsible, again, I skipped that because that was that other version. So after it would say alternative education services and for opening/reopening, that's in the pink, that's where I would then add and communicate all decisions to the board, period. And then it's going to jump to the next pink or to the orange that says any curriculum changes. So where it starts to talk about the curriculum. But you guys haven't gotten to that to decide which one of those you want to use yet.
Correct. Okay, thanks, Michelle,
Sure.
for that clarification. Board members, preferences?
I'll just add that the highlighted one where it talks about establishing board policies allows for, because we have specific board policies that talk about the decision of approving curriculum being with the board. So if those policies get changed, then you don't have to come back and do a search for any particular pieces like within this. By saying that it would still be approved by the board, let's say years down the road, the decision in the board policies around curriculum, it's being approved in some other manner, we would have to go back and change this policy. By tying it to established board policies, when those policies are updated, you don't have to come back and change that. That's the rationale for the highlighted one.
Okay, personally, I like the highlighted one. Others?
I like the
Board Member
highlighted
Levy.
one, just because
Oh,
it's.
I'm sorry, Board Member Levy, I apologize.
Oh, just a question because that raised a thought in my head. So this is for Dr. Kieser. Could you ever imagine a scenario where curriculum would not be approved by the board?
Not in the near future, because that's actually a state statute that the board must approve new curriculum. So no, I can't imagine that unless state law were to change.
Okay, because I like the highlighted portion, and I would also add, just in case someone is reading this but is not familiar with established board policy, I would like for it to say any curriculum changes would follow established board policy, comma, requiring board approval. So that way it's a twofer.
I'm fine with that. Board Member Wong?
I'm fine with it. I guess I'm just kind of wondering what established board policies with board approval, is that redundant?
It's not redundant if you're unaware what those policies are. And if you are unaware, it saves you from trying to find the policy. It's just a quick, and this is what it is.
I'm fine with that.
All right, and then for my clarification, flipping up above the pink, well, between the two pinks, what are we doing with the superintendent shall be responsible for the determination? That sentence.
That we struck in favor of the highlighted
Okay.
piece and adding and communicate all decisions to the board.
Okay, thank you. So is there any other, are there any other comments or discussion in regard to this policy then?
Just really quick, and I don't know if this is just because it's a rough draft of a new policy, but it would be helpful if the header of the policy appeared up top. And I'm sure it will before it's formalized and posted, but that would just be helpful.
I would agree with that. So, Board Member Levy, you're just stating that the header should be the school opening, correct? Get rid of the proposed policy?
No. Have the title, but also have the number, and I think this one is 723.1.
Oh,
1.
yes, of course. Yes. Oops, sorry, I was muted and talking to myself. Would anyone like further clarification or anything read back regarding this policy?
Just so we're all clear, Michelle, Ms. Shope, could you please repeat back those last two sentences?
Yes. Just waiting for it to come back up. The superintendent shall be responsible for the mode of instruction and the development and implementation of a plan for alternative education services and for opening/reopening and communicating all decisions to the board. Any curriculum changes would follow established board policies requiring board approval.
All right. Are we at that point where we're ready for a
Yeah,
motion?
I move to recommend to the full Board of Education the addition and layover of policy 723.41, school opening/reopening during a public health crisis for first reading as amended.
Do I have a second?
Stephanie, you'll need to second.
All right, I shall second. I had forgotten. Thank you, Board Member Levy. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve policy 723.41, school opening/reopening during a public health crisis as amended to go before the full board next month. Okay, I think I got it all. We have a motion and a second, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
All right, the motion is carried. And we are now on to policy 723.41, Rule 1, school opening/reopening procedures.
So in this one, we had not finished the conversation. Where we had left off was in the second paragraph, that last sentence. What's in parentheses, question the last sentence. There was conversation, do we keep the sentence? Do we exclude the sentence? So that's where we were. I'll just, looking at the time, the last paragraph, there was added the board, and then instead of Facebook, we had talked about other media outlets just so that it would be more inclusive. So the last paragraph was updated, the conversation left off with that last sentence of the second paragraph.
Okay, and and I thank you for Dr. Keiser for bringing up the time. I really would like.
I think so.
Oops, I'm sorry. I muted myself again. So let's just keep time in mind because we still have to get through the personnel recs as well today. So board member Lee.
So two things. The first one is that I believe this should be policy 723.41, rule 1, not .4. And then I still feel very strongly that it's important that we state that we will not allow staff to recongregate in a building that has been closed due to an outbreak. So when it says report to work instead of report to building, I just don't want to put our staff in a situation where there's an outbreak, the building is closed, but they are still required to report to work and congregate together in people that may have been exposed.
So I'm a little confused because that's what.
So instead of saying report to building, it now says report to work. But if we're not specifying that we will not make you report to a building that has been closed due to an outbreak, that concerns me because it leaves open the possibility of that happening.
I can't imagine a situation in which I or another administrator would knowingly put staff in a building that has not been cleaned and sanitized after, in this case, an outbreak, if we're talking about like what we're currently dealing with. But work could remain, and again, we were talking about, what other things could constitute a public health crisis. We might have people report to an alternative building if, say, a part of a building was closed off for something. And I think we used the example of if there was a fire and part of the wing was closed.
And I agree with what you said, Dr. Keiser. I have no problem with the wording personally myself. Board Member Wong?
I have no problem with the wording. I mean, taking the word building out of it, I think opens it up to whereby it could be virtual, it could be in the building. It provides a lot more flexibility.
I would just add on briefly that thank you, Board Member Wong, for your last comment, because you just said it could be work, it could be the building. And that's my point. I want to eliminate the option to have staff return to a building. And since this is the companion piece for the health crisis, I just don't want to have the possibility of staff being required to report to a building even after it's cleaned, if it's still in the quarantine phase, and be required to recongregate.
I see you this time, Board Member Miller.
Let me unmute. Okay, hi. I was just wondering, could we just add report to work in a safe space or a space deemed safe according to health guidance or something like that?
So something along the lines of administrator may still require administrators and staff to report to work in a safe environment? Would that work?
I think so. I am coming into this conversation, not part of the committee, so I don't know what the whole spectrum of opinion is here, but I think that I would agree with Board Member Levy's concerns just because this is like policy like now and forever, you know, could be 20 years from now, something else. And we want to make sure we're as clear as possible so people understand what we're talking about.
Board members Wong and Levy, would you be all right with that?
I like where it's headed, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but deemed safe by whom? By whomever the administrator is, by a public health official. I think that's important, and not to say that an administrator would make a reckless call. I want to be clear about that, but deemed safe by a public health official or the Rock County Health Department, or I think we should clear that up.
I guess I'm not following. If we said in a added to report to work in a safe environment, wouldn't that be sufficient?
Okay, so I might think your building is a safe environment, so go back to work. So if it's deemed safe by, it's just my preference. That doesn't mean we have to go with it, but I think it's appropriate to say deemed safe by a public health official or the Rock County Health Department, some outside source that is assessing these types of things.
Board Member Wong, thoughts?
I don't know. I have a hard time with that one because, I mean, there's so many different opinions out there. I mean, you're going to say, okay, it's going to be Rock County. It's going to be, they could be Rock County, but is it specified for our district? I think you put yourself into a box there. I think that you need to provide the flexibility. I'm fine with to report to work in a safe work environment. I think that leaves it up to the administrator to make that call, and that's what we're hiring the administrator for, is to make these calls for us as a district.
And I tend to agree with that. So where does that leave us?
I think Board Member Delgado had a question.
Oh, how am I missing these? Oh, I have two computers. I apologize. I must be looking at the other computer and missing the chat because it comes and goes so quickly. Thank you. Board Member Delgado.
Just a question for administration, I guess. Isn't there like some kind of COOP plan arranged already for whenever, there's an emergency like that, buildings need to be shut down? I mean, don't we leave that to administration to gather that and put that together? I mean, there has to be some type of an emergency plan, to follow. So I really don't see the need of, putting more wording into that. You're reporting back to work based on the instructions of administration. I mean, that's just my thought.
Board Member Levy, can you live with that sentence restated that way?
I mean, it's kind of a moot point because I'm not voting for it anyway. I have my position. If that is not shared, that's fine. I yield to the will of the group.
Thank you, Board Member Levy. All right, Ms. Shope, I should be calling you Mrs. Shope instead of Michelle. Could you please read back that last sentence then, beginning with administrator?
Sure. If the schools are partially closed, the district administrator may still require administrators and staff to report to work in a safe environment.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on then. Dr. Kieser, I see we've got that last paragraph.
Correct. So the conversation, the discussion was to add the board to the list of individuals that will be notified. And then it used to say Facebook, and there was conversation about social media, or in this case, we put down other media outlets so that it would be more inclusive.
Questions, comments? Thank you, Dr. Kieser. So then, the last sentence then would be, upon reaching a decision to reopen schools following a public health crisis, the superintendent shall notify the board, parents. Okay. And then does it skip Mrs. Shope to? No. And then place an announcement on the district website and other media outlets, period. Notice of reopening should be given as far in advance as practicable. Practicable?
Correct.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
I'm good with the changes.
Board Member Levy, you can, or yield to the group?
It seems, well, it's fine.
Okay. Well, I don't want to make you feel like you're agreeing to something you don't want to.
No. The good news is that's not possible, but the thing is I'm fine with the wording, but I don't agree with the premise of it, which is why I won't be voting for it. So it's fine.
Okay, thank you. All right, so are we ready for a motion?
I move to recommend to the full Board of Education the addition and layover of policy 723.41, Rule 1, school opening/reopening procedures for first reading as amended.
And I second. So we have a motion and a second for policy 723.41, Rule 1, school opening/reopening procedures as amended to go to the full board next month. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
All right, the motion carries. And we are now at personnel items for September 22nd, 2020, employment recommendations, Exhibit A, Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I move to approve the personnel recs in Exhibit A
I'll
to
second
the
that.
full board.
All right, we have a motion to approve the September 22nd, 2020 employment recommendations, Exhibit A, Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, to the full Board of Education today. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? The motion passes. And then we are now at
Adjournment.
the end of our meeting. Are there any items for future agendas?
For
Did I
the
miss?
for the next
Yes.
policy and personnel in October, if any changes to the first set of 500 series policies, if you get that to me, Ms. Shope and myself will consolidate that and get that out to the committee members for review before that meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Kieser. What date would you like that by, please?
Good question. I will, let's see here, our next meeting will be on the 13th.
13th,
So
correct.
if we have it by the 5th, that would give us a full week to get them consolidated and out to everyone for review.
I'm sorry, I missed the date.
No later than Monday, October 5th.
Monday, October 5th. Okay, thank you. And Board Member Levy?
Yes, I have a request. Can Mrs. Shope send out a reminder for the October 5th date and with the identified section that we're going to focus on in the 500 series?
Love it. Mrs. Shope, could you do that?
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, our next meeting date will be Tuesday, October 13th, 2020, time to be determined, and we are now at adjournment. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for adjournment. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I didn't ask any questions or discussions, dang. Okay, sorry. So all in favor, please say aye. Sorry, Board Member Levy.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, the motion carries and our meeting is done. Thank you.
All right. Okay. It is 6:17, so I will call the Governance Committee meeting to order. May I have roll call, please?
Wong,
Here.
Levy,
Here.
Larson.
Present.
All members are present with Levy virtual.
May I have approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, a second to approve the agenda. Are there any questions or discussion regarding the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Brings us to item C, the approval of the minutes from our July 28th, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Do they need to be done separately? Can we do both of them in one motion?
Absolutely, you can do both of them in one motion.
All right, I move that we approve the governance committee meetings from July 28th and August 25th.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the governance committee meeting minutes from July 28th to August 25th. Any other questions or discussion regarding the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. And yet you can always combine those minutes just as a teaching moment, but we keep them separately in case there is a discussion regarding one of them. Then it's easier to navigate like the motions and everything. All right, brings us to the board member professional development survey. So I brought this at our meeting last month and corrected where I had some blank questions in there. And then I had also added a section at the end for committee chairs. So it's back for another look over to decide whether or not it's ready to be sent out to board members. Is there any feedback?
Looks good.
Looks good to me.
All right. So I will do you guys want to make a motion? It's up to you guys. Is okay. Are you okay with consensus, or do you want a motion? Okay, looks like we're okay with consensus. So I will.
Wait, one comment, just
Yeah.
probably cleaning up this is extremely minute. Some of the things so that they're on the same page. The top.
Oh, yeah. This is just a PDF version.
Okay.
So what will go out is like a rolling Google form. Yeah, so this is just how it prints if I print it off on a printer. Thank you. Okay, so I will send this out and then I will we'll bring the results back next month. Okay, which brings us to our meeting closing. I believe the fourth Tuesday of October is the 29th? No, it's the. I'm sorry, it only flipped the week, not the month for me. It is the 27th. Bless you. And the time will be determined around 6-ish again, 6:15-ish. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I got one quick comment.
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment, President Larson, on I appreciate the meetings and the way that they've been structured this year and the committee's work that we're doing together. I think it's much more productive, and hopefully we'll see proof of the board meetings being lightning fast tonight as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
Right. All right. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a quick question.
Yeah. Go ahead, Board Member Levy.
Will our future governance meetings be used to kind of assign future agenda items to committee?
We can. In the past, they were used that way as the new committee structures came together to kind of help funnel things that way. I think now that we've gotten into it, the board secretary, the superintendent, and I are able to kind of say this, like we take the future agenda items requested and say, oh, this is more for that one, and then it gets communicated to the chairs through that. But we can, if there's, I can put on the agenda and I can follow up with you and see more what you're thinking about that.
That would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion, a second to adjourn. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. See you at 7.